Hi, everybody. It's another Conversations with. And with me today is my friend John Paul. And as you know, John is with AAA, and he's our automobile man.
That's right.
And John, you and I were chatting about, in fact, there was a report today that came out from AAA that older drivers can be distracted up to 8 seconds with all the new dashboard toys.
Yeah, it really is. We've looked at a lot of distractions over time, and even some of these systems where you talk to the car, so you tell it, oh, I want the navigation system to take me somewhere. In almost a lot of cases, your brain sort of shuts off for a couple minutes, waiting for the command to take place. So you hit it, and you don't trust it, and you're like, I want to go to 121 Main Street. And you kind of wait and you wait and you wait and you see if it happens. Well, you're waiting, you're not paying attention to driving. And then we looked at some of the other systems, and we found that older drivers can take a little bit longer. And whenever you're engaged in any of those distractions, your chances of getting into a crash double. So, and what we looked at is we looked at ages from 21 to say 50-ish and then 50 up. And we found that it's not an age problem specifically, it's the system wasn't designed in mind with all of the users. So even though older drivers may have a little bit of a problem navigating through it, the problem is the design itself. The design itself doesn't lend itself to being easy to use. And I'm driving a car right now that's a 2019 car, and it has the clumsiest navigation system, and it's just not easy to use. And I see that in cars. This happens to be in these days relatively affordable. It starts in the mid-20s and goes to mid-30s. But I was recently in a Range Rover, so top of the line, $175,000 car, and the navigation system and the whole user interface for the infotainment system was awful. And all it did was distract you. Maybe this car was designed in such a way it was supposed to have a chauffeur. And, you sit in the back seat and don't worry about it. But still, the point is that these systems, we can put a lot of technology in cars, and some of it's good, and some of it will certainly save lives, but some of it, all it does is distract the driver, and we already have enough distractions.
Well, the report that was on the noontime news, and I was taken aback by it. If you're distracted for 2 seconds, the risk of an accident doubles.
Doubles, absolutely. So if you get distracted for 8 seconds, do the math.
Well, not only that, but even with voice command. Now, my wife happens to have voice command in her car. What happens is you give the command, and then you look to make sure it's going to do it. And when you look, you're not looking at the road.
Exactly, and that's it. And for some reason, the voice systems have a real problem with people in New England. It doesn't like our voice that much.
No, our accents.
Apparently we have one. Is what the system thinks, and it has a little trouble kind of do that. And I'll get in some cars and I'll push every car I get in that has, I try it. And I'll get in some cars and I'll push the button and I'll say, take me home, and I'll tell it the address. And I got in one and I said navigation, directions, gave it my address, and it changed the radio station. That isn't what so I tried it again, and then I just got frustrated.
I've tried it. I've got it in my car, and it doesn't work. And it sends me to Worcester or something, whatever. So I just set it myself. But
that's just it. And what we really try to tell people is, driving down the road when you're traveling 60 miles an hour and you're traveling almost 90 feet a second isn't the time that you want to be playing with the radio that's the time you want to be concentrating on driving. That's 2 hands on the wheel, 2 eyes on the road. Pay attention.
It happened the other day. I was going down Route 20, and there was a line of cars, and we were all safe distance. And there's 2 lanes, and on the inside lane, a fella is in the inside lane, puts a blinker on to go across the road.
Okay.
Now he's going to go across not only the lane that's next to us, but now he's going to go in the other side. Everybody, one fellow went up off the road into the side of the road. He didn't get hurt. He just pulled up because he was going to hit somebody. And there was cars everywhere. Everybody turned because all of a sudden he went from the inside lane to the passing lane and then across the road. And everybody just,
Yep.
and he did it at the last second.
Yep.
And you talk about not paying attention. That could have been a 5 or 6 car
Oh yeah,
nightmare.
yeah, absolutely.
Nightmare.
Yep.
You know, and
But you talk about some of this technology, and you mentioned that some of them can spot a pedestrian crossing the road.
Yeah.
Well, I was driving a new Toyota, and it had all kinds of sensors in it.
Yeah.
And I was backing up into a parking spot, and there was some bushes real low.
Yeah.
And they weren't even bushes; they were weeds.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I'm backing up, and the thing jams on the brakes all by itself.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the? I look in the rear mirror. I don't see anything. So I stopped and looked in the backup camera. I didn't really see anything, but I got out of the car, and I'm like, what's it? It's not even close to the car.
Yeah.
What's it?
Yeah.
But it saw this movement
Yeah.
and thought something was back there. And again, the technology, as good as it can be, and some of this automatic emergency braking, which is, there's a memorandum of understanding. All the manufacturers are going to put this front collision braking system in cars in the next 4 or 5 years. And it will help, just like anti-lock brakes has helped, but it needs to get better, and it needs to, and the other part is the customer needs to be educated on how it works. Most people, when they buy a new car, the salesperson spends all the time explaining how to hook your phone up to the car, but never tells you that how the anti-lock brakes are going to work, or the automatic emergency braking, or why it beeps at you when you drift out of the lane. And I was talking to a very well-educated guy with a brand new Chevy Suburban, so $60,000, $70,000 car, and he goes, the steering sticks on it. He said, I'm out on the highway and the steering sticks on it. Well, it wasn't the steering sticking. He wanders a little bit while he drives. So when he was getting over so far, the car wanted to pull him back into the lane. It wasn't the steering was sticking. The car was trying to correct for his bad. I said, once he told me what it was, I said, well, you can try shutting it off and see if that fixes the problem. So he drove it a couple days and came back and he said, it was a system. I said, well, part of the problem is you're just a lousy driver. It wouldn't happen if you, and he goes, well, yeah, maybe I do drift back and forth a little bit. But I said, that was the reason. And I said, when the systems are intrusive like that, the first thing people look for is the button how to shut it off. And if you're shutting it off all the time, what's the point of having it?
And you paid for it.
Oh, you pay, absolutely.
The other thing that you mentioned was these, I didn't even realize it, there's sensors in those cars.
Oh, yeah.
And if you get in an accident and they go and fix it and they don't adjust the sensors, you got a problem.
That's right. And that's one of the things that we're starting to see is some of these, and they use combinations of cameras and radar, and they all have to be recalibrated or they're not going to work right. And I know of one company, they started a separate business, and they go out to body shops and even some dealerships, and they have all the equipment to recalibrate all the sensors, and they put a guy in a van with all the equipment, and they go up. But you need 75 or 80 feet of clear space to put out these targets, so you can set up everything and hook up to the onboard computer and calibrate everything to measure where the targets are. And a lot of people buy used cars, and they'll buy a car that's a year old, and that car 3 or 4 years down the road might get sold again. But in that 5 or 6 year period, it might have gotten to some kind of crash. Well, chances are when it's 6 or 7 years old, it's not going to get repaired the same way it did when it was a year old. Now, all of a sudden, somebody with a 6, 7, 8 year old car has technology that wasn't ever set up right again, and they have all kinds of problems. They have phantom problems they don't even know about. And even to the point of some cars have automatic wipers. So you just leave them on automatic, and when it rains, they start to work. And when it stops raining, they stop. And if it rains real hard, they work really fast. Some aftermarket replacement windshields, the quality of the glass isn't right. So when it sits over the camera, the camera can't see what it needs to see. And I was talking to somebody with a Mazda. They put a windshield in it, it didn't work. They put a second windshield in it, it didn't work. They had to put the Mazda windshield in it, and in between they brought it to the Mazda dealer, and the dealer said, I don't know, everything seems to be working the way it's supposed to. When they put the original equipment Mazda glass in it, it solved all the problems.
Well, the other thing too, my dad used to say, the more things you put into a unit, the more things that will go wrong. And I was thinking, driving up today, before we get together to do the program, when you think of all the new technology that's in these automobiles. Now, we're looking at a new car for my wife, and we're looking at 2018s, 2017s, and I'm stunned with what they now come with. There's Parktronics, there's rear view cameras, there's pedestrian sighting.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
there's 8 or 9 new,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
new technologies. And I'm saying to myself, wow, you buy that car. And usually Jen keeps a car a couple of years and trades it. Every 2 years she'll get a new one. And I'm thinking, 2 or 3 sales down the road, that car's 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what it's going to cost to fix the Parktronic?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
What it's going to cost? Because that's a whole computer system.
I mean, we just had the anniversary of the moon landing.
Yeah.
There's more technology in a car than there was that took the astronauts to the moon.
That's right.
And the part of it, it really is. You mentioned some of it, the automatic parking. So you can pull up to you don't have to parallel park.
No.
You can let the car do it by itself. But the idea that it's using sensors and an electric motor on the steering wheel that spins the steering wheel
Yeah.
around. And it sometimes you don't have to touch the gas and the brake. Sometimes you have to use the gas and the brake, and it'll tell you when to stop and start. But you think about that technology as it starts to age, and think about anything mechanical.
yeah.
You know, if you think of the simplest thing in the world, an oscillating fan.
Yeah.
Eventually, they don't oscillate anymore because the mechanism that makes it go back
That's
and
right.
forth just doesn't work. And maybe it's a 3-speed fan, and only the second speed
Speed
works.
works, that's right.
And that's a simple thing.
Yeah.
Now think about all this technology that's in cars with literally miles of wiring.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one of the failure places is there's so much wiring in cars, they make the wires thinner now
Yeah.
because it's weight.
That's right.
The less weight, better mileage.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, instead of having a wire this thick, we'll get one with this thick, and we can save weight. And Tesla just came out, Elon Musk just said, with their newest vehicles coming out, they're coming out with a new style wiring harness. And they all use like computer style
Yeah.
wires now. And they said they're going to come out with a new wiring harness. And I don't remember what it said, but it said something like they were going to cut the amount of wire use in half with whatever this new system is going to be. And which translates into hundreds of feet of wire.
Yeah.
And you think about that, and you're like, all that wire, and it's, anybody that's ever had a problem in their house with an electrical problem, well, your house doesn't move. Think what your house would be like if it drove down the road every
That's right.
day over our less than perfect
Right.
roads.
Well, not only that, but I happen to have a SUV, and we have a push button, and the back
Yep.
lid opens.
Yep.
Well, if you get up and look at that lid, coming out of the car into that back piece, there's a harness. Now it's all wrapped up in a cable. But every time that door opens,
it
you go
bends.
down and
Yeah.
opens and go down, and so the poor guy who gets it from me
Yeah.
is now going to be 5 or 6 or 7 years old, and all it's going to take one crack,
Yeah.
one wire crack,
Yeah.
and he's looking at a huge job.
And what happens is because they use a CAN network, control area network,
Yeah.
just like computer systems
Yeah.
do, that same wiring harness might have something to do with the radio or the air conditioner, or
yeah.
who knows?
Yeah.
So because the wire broke that lifts up the tailgate,
Yeah.
that same
You
wiring
lose the antenna.
harness,
That's the one from
yeah,
the antenna.
Yeah, that same harness might have something to do with the display on the dash.
Or the door locks.
Or the door lock. You never know.
What they're
and
running through
and
it.
that's why it's so important that mechanics, technicians today have to stay up on all this stuff. And at some point, some of good shops that I know, they'll have some stuff to come in, and they'll normally fix any. They'll come in and they'll go, it's just not worth it for us to do it because I have to buy a specialized tool, and it's going to be $5,000.
Yeah.
I only have 2 or 3 of these customers with
Yeah.
these vehicles, and I'll still do what I can. But every once in a while, there's going to be something I'm going to say, it just isn't worth for me to do it anymore because the investment's too expensive, and the knowledge I need to be able to do it. It's like someone trying to learn, an Excel